The people of Great Britain will probably elect a new parliament in 2024, so this year, and polls predict a major defeat for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservatives. And there are reasons for that. The Tories' last terms in office were marked by a lot of unrest, and David Cameron led political Britain as Prime Minister for 6 years in the beginning of that. From May 11th in 2010, he initially headed a coalition government with the Liberal Democrats before ruling in the lower house with an absolute majority for his Conservative Party since 2015. But his own party often made life difficult for him. Cameron's faction in the House of Commons refused to support him on several occasions, for example, on gay marriage or on reforming the House of Lords. And former London Mayor Boris Johnson and ex-party leader Ian Duncan Smith repeatedly accused him of weak leadership. But Cameron's biggest problem was European policy. He also failed to find a solution to this question, which has divided the Tories for decades. At first, he was still optimistic. I was always of the opinion that you have to approach big decisions and not shy away from them, he said looking back. But over time, he had made more and more concessions to the Eurosceptic wing of his party. He was openly angry about the European Union and demonstratively opposed it in Brussels. But none of it was useful. In the end, Cameron would fail because of Europe. In 2016, he put everything on one card with a referendum on whether the country should remain in the EU, and suddenly mutated into a champion of the European idea. However, his compatriots didn't buy it, and were still, against his stated wishes, the people of Great Britain decided to leave the EU. Brexit became Cameron's biggest defeat, so all he could do was declare his resignation. And when he appeared in front of the cameras in front of number 10 Downing Street alongside his wife Samantha on June 24th in 2016, he was close to tears. After the Brexit vote, Britain needed new leadership, and this is where Theresa May came into play. The daughter of a vicar took office as David Cameron's successor on July 13th in 2016. She was often compared to the Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher or to Angela Merkel. But all of these comparisons were flawed. She was just a completely different type. The 3 words she once chose to describe herself are significant here. She would be a bloody difficult woman. As head of government, she was largely unsuccessful. After the Brexit vote, many people in Europe and Great Britain hoped that they would still find a way out of the mess. After all, May had spoken out in favor of remaining in the EU before the referendum. However, she was no longer willing to compromise afterwards. Her mantra was, Brexit means Brexit, and that meant leaving the EU internal market and the customs union. Before the referendum, May had indeed spoken out in favor of remaining. Since May did not see a majority in Parliament for her Brexit plans, she called a new election. But the early general election in June 2017 turned into quite a disaster. Her well-rehearsed appearance during the election campaign made her appear cold and stiff, and the result was bitter. It was a long way from the expected landslide victory against Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, and the Tories lost their absolute majority. The official Tories historian Alistair Lexton gave her an extremely poor report in an article in February 2019. For him, May was the worst leader of the Tories ever. She resigned from her position in July 2019. He didn't know Liz Truss. From July 24th in 2019, Boris Johnson tried to get Britain out of the Brexit mess, and he always had high goals. Born in New York to an environmental consultant, as a child he wanted to be nothing less than king of the world, according to Johnson's sister Rachel. At least it was enough to become Prime Minister. Johnson's life path was virtually predetermined. He attended the elite schools, the School Eton and the Oxford University, where he was a member of the infamous Bullingdon Club. This is a legendary table party known for its hooliganism and drinking. And after graduating, Johnson worked at the Times, but was fired after just 1 year for falsifying quotes. But that didn't hurt his career. In 1987, he joined the Daily Telegraph, where he was co-editor from 1994 to 1999. He then moved to the conservative weekly The Spectator, which he served as editor until 2005. And during his time as mayor of London from 2008 to 16, he also published a biography about his role model Winston Churchill. But the criticism of the historian Richard J. Evans became better known as the Churchill factor. Things were always high for Johnson. He's dangled down a zip line, tried tug of war, rolled down a boy playing rugby. Well, not to mention he once hid in a walk-in refrigerator to avoid an interview. Since he took office, one scandal then followed the next, and Johnson initially survived everything, including the Partygate affair involving illegal lockdown celebrations in Downing Street. But an affair involving Johnson's party colleague Chris Pincher was the last straw. The pressure from the party became too great, and Johnson resigned in the summer of 22. On September 6th in 22, Liz Truss took the helm in the UK. Born in Oxford in 1975, Truss grew up in Paisley in Scotland and Leeds in England. Her father was a mathematics professor and her mother was a nurse, both of whom she once described as left-wing. Truss is younger than me, by the way. Her mother even took her to demonstrations against nuclear weapons. But Truss rebelled against the political influence of her parents' house and initially joined the Liberal Democrats before switching to the Conservatives. That was only logical, as former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher is considered her, let's say, great role model. Truss is considered extremely volatile, and this was also evident in the Brexit referendum. After previously drumming up support for remaining in the EU, she was subsequently considered a convert, a born-again Brexiteer, and she also owed her rise to the position of Prime Minister with the Tories to this change of heart. Like no other head of government before her, Truss tried to put the Brexit ideology into practice. As soon as the shackles of the EU are thrown off and taxes are reduced, an almost fairy tale economic growth should be triggered, at least to her theory. But all theory is grey, as we would say in German. When the government announced a mega package of tax relief, the value of the pound plummeted. Treasury yields shot up, and the central bank had to intervene to save pension funds from collapse. At this point, Truss had only been in office for 17 days. The Economist magazine therefore certified Truss' shelf life for a salad. Well, the salad won. The tabloid Daily Star made fun of it and placed a head of lettuce next to the Prime Minister's portrait in a live broadcast to see who would last longer. And as I said, the salad won. Liz Truss only remained in office for 45 days, and then it was Rishi Sunak's term. Because of his background, his appointment as Prime Minister was seen as evidence of tolerance in the United Kingdom. Sunak's grandparents are from India and emigrated to Britain from East Africa in the 1960s. In fact, in 1980, when Sunak was born in Southampton, there was not a single person of color in Parliament. The Indian writer Pankaj Mishra was nevertheless critical in The Guardian. His hasty promotion to 10 Downing Street now encourages brazen racists to pose as representatives of ethnic diversity. In fact, the British government is not very sensitive towards minorities. The best example is the asylum law that they want to introduce. And the draft stipulates that people who come to the UK regularly, regardless of their origin, will be deported to Rwanda. The Rwanda plan was a kind of a hobby horse of former Home Secretary Suella Braverman. The representative of the right wing of the party, who also has Indian roots, once even said with a smile in the fall of 22 that it was her dream that London would deport asylum seekers by plane to Rwanda before Christmas. Sunak's personal background as a former investment banker, whose wife is the daughter of one of the richest people in India, also causes mistrust. Guardian columnist Nesreen Malik sarcastically tweeted that Sunak's inauguration sent a strong message to people of color. If you go to private school, amass fortune, become the richest MP in Parliament and have a joint future fortune with your wife, that is greater than the king's, by the way, you too can become Prime Minister. So much about the diversity. But that was just a little package of putting together what we have seen in the time of the Tories that most probably will be interrupted with the next general election this year. And this little package shows probably why that will be the case. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.